I didn't cry when I saw the text. It was from my husband, Richard. It read, "Don't wait up. Old friends from college are in town, staying at the Four Seasons." But I already knew, because I was standing in the ballroom of the Royal York Hotel, watching him laugh across the room with her. My sister's charity gala, the one we'd planned together for months, and he'd brought her. You're probably wondering how it got this far. Let me go back. My name is Eleanor. I'm 68 years old. I've been married to Richard for 42 years. We built a life. A good 1.3 kids. 2 beautiful grandkids, a house on the bridle path to a cottage in Muskoka, and a retirement that was supposed to be filled with travel and quiet mornings. I thought we were happy. I thought I'd done everything right. I raised our children while Richard climbed the ladder on Bay Street. I hosted his clients. I remembered birthdays. I kept our homes so perfect. It looked like a magazine spread. I never asked for much. Just his time. His attention. His love. But over the years, something shifted. It started small. He'd cancel dinner plans because of a last-minute merger. He'd forget our anniversary. He'd scroll through his phone at the table, smiling at messages I wasn't meant to see. Then came the comments. "You're being too sensitive," he'd say, when I'd ask who he was texting at midnight. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." I believed him, because I loved him, because I thought marriage meant weathering the storms together. But the storms were just beginning. It was last fall when I first noticed the changes. The way he started dressing differently. The way he began working out again after 20 years of neglecting his health. The way he'd come home smelling like a perfume I didn't own. I asked him about it. "Are you having an affair?" He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Eleanor, you're being paranoid. You need to see someone." I did see someone. My doctor, because I couldn't sleep, because my hand shook when I poured my coffee in the morning. She said it was anxiety, maybe depression. She suggested I take up a hobby. So I started gardening. I planted roses. I spent hours in the dirt, trying to quiet the voice in my head that whispered something is wrong. Then, one afternoon in April, I found the receipt. It was in his suit pocket from a jewelry store, a receipt for a necklace, a very expensive one. And not the kind of thing you buy for your wife of 42 years. Not when she's wearing the same pearl earrings she's had since her wedding day. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. "It's for a client," he said, calm as ever. "A thank you gift. You're overreacting." But I wasn't, because the next week, I overheard a phone call. He thought I was in the garden, that I was in the study, pretending to read. "I can't keep doing this, Claire," he said. "She's starting to suspect. The gala is next Saturday. I'll introduce you then. She'll get the message." My blood went cold. Claire. The name he used to mutter in his sleep 20 years ago. The name of the woman he'd dated before me. The one he'd said meant nothing. She meant nothing. But here he was, bringing her to my sister's gala, introducing her to our friends, humiliating me in public. That's when I knew. This wasn't just an affair. This was a war. And he'd already chosen his side. The night of the gala, I dressed carefully. A simple black dress, the pearl earrings, and necklace. I wanted to look dignified, even though I felt like a ghost. When we arrived, Richard barely looked at me. He was already scanning the room, looking for her. And then I saw her. Claire, still blonde, still thin, still smiling that smile that used to make me feel invisible. Richard walked right past me to greet her. He took her arm. He led her through the crowd like as she was his wife. I stood there, frozen, as people began to notice. I heard the whispers. "Is that who I think it is? What is Richard doing? Poor Eleanor." My sister found me later by the bar. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I had no idea he'd do something like this." I smiled, a tight, polite smile. "It's fine," I said, but it wasn't fine. It was the worst night of my life. And then, as I watched Richard laugh with Claire by the champagne tower, I made a decision. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to cry. That I was going to wait. Because I had something he didn't know about. You see, when Richard started pulling away, I got scared. Not just emotionally, financially. So I did something I'd never done before. I opened a separate bank account. Just a little one at first, from the grocery money I saved by clipping coupons, from the birthday cash my grandkids gave me, from the small inheritance from my mother that I never told him about. I called it my rainy day fund. I never imagined it would become my lifeboat. But that's not all. A few months ago, I was cleaning out the attic and found an old file. Richard's first will. The one he'd written before we had kids, before the house, before everything. And there it was, in black and white. The house on the bridle path, the cottage in Muskoka, all of it left to me. Not to our children, not in trust to me. He'd never updated it. I showed it to my lawyer, Mr. Reynolds. He's been my father's lawyer for 50 years. He's 82 now. He still comes to the office 3 days a week. He read the document. He looked over his glasses at me. Eleanor, he said slowly, this is still valid. As long as you're alive, that property is yours. I felt a chill, because I realized something. Richard thought he owned everything, but he didn't. I did. And he had no idea. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I didn't tell him. I just did it. My lawyer served him at his office. That afternoon, he stormed into the house. What is this? He shouted, waving the papers. I was in the kitchen making tea. I think it's a divorce petition, I said calmly. Would you like a cup? He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You can't be serious. I'm very serious, Richard. He laughed at a cold, bitter laugh. You think you're going to get anything? I make the money. This house, the cars, the investments, they're all in my name. I took a sip of my tea. Are you sure about that? He stopped. What are you talking about? I reached into my purse and pulled out the old will that I slid it across the table. Read this, I said. He picked it up. He read it. His face went pale. This is decades old. It's still valid, I said. Unless you've updated it. Have you? He didn't answer. Because he hadn't. He'd talked about it for years, but he never got around to it. And now it was too late. That weekend, Claire called. I let it go to voicemail. She said, Eleanor, I'm sorry. I had no idea he was still married. I deleted it. The next week, Richard's lawyer called. They wanted to settle. Out of court. They offered me the house, the cottage, half of his pension. I didn't counter. I just said yes. Because I didn't want the money. I wanted my dignity. And I wanted him to know that I'd known all along. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood in my garden. The roses were in bloom. My sister called. He's moving in with her, she said. They bought a condo downtown. I smiled. Good for them, I said. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the night of the gala, the way he'd looked at me like I was invisible, the way he'd paraded her in front of our friends. And I was thinking about the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had won. Not with a scream, not with a scene, but with patience, with paperwork, with the truth. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry. I used to be. But anger is heavy. It weighs you down. Now I just feel free. Free to plant my roses. Free to spend time with my grandkids. Free to live my life without wondering where he is or who he's with. I've learned something in these last few years. Betrayal doesn't define you. How you respond does. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. Just wait, watch, and let the truth do the work. So if you're listening to this and you're hurting, if you feel invisible, if you feel like you've given everything and gotten nothing in return, remember this. The quietest people are often the strongest because they know exactly what they're capable of. And sometimes the best revenge is simply peace. Assistant B. But I didn't tell you everything about those 6 months. Between the day he signed the papers and the day we became strangers, there was a war. A quiet 1.1 fought in phone calls, emails, and Sunday dinners gone cold. You think the hardest part was losing him? No, the hardest part was watching our children take his side. It started 3 weeks after I served the papers. My son, David, called me on a Tuesday. Mom, he said, Dad says you're having a breakdown. I say what? I asked. He says you've changed. You're being difficult. I stood in my kitchen, holding the receiver so tight my knuckles turned white. David, I said, we both know I'm not crazy. Then why won't he listen to reason? He snapped back. He's trying to do right by the family. And you're making it impossible. I looked around the dining room table. Where had we eaten Thanksgiving dinner? Where had they carved the turkey together? All because I wanted my own bedroom door to lock. Tell him something for me, I said. What? David asked. Tell him I'll see him in court. He hung up. That was the third betrayal. My blood. Turning against me. Do you know what that does to a person when your husband leaves? It hurts. But when your children believe his lies, it shatters something deeper. I stopped answering their calls. For 2 months, I sat in this house, listening to the silence. And that's when I found the letter. It was tucked inside a cookbook from my mother, written on yellowed paper. It dated back 40 years. It wasn't addressed to Richard. It was written by his mother, my mother-in-law. She died 10 years ago, but she knew. She wrote to me once, 5 years before she passed. Eleanor, she'd written, men change, but women endure. Hold your head high. The truth has a way of catching up. I cried over that letter, not because of the sadness, but because of the relief. I wasn't the only woman who ever suffered in this family, and she'd known exactly who Richard was. So I dried my face and I put the letter in my safe deposit box, and I waited for the next move. The mediation session was held in a small conference room downtown. Richard brought a suit jacket I'd never seen. He looked polished, ready for a business deal. His lawyer smiled at me, smiled like he thought I wouldn't understand the fine print. They proposed a settlement. They said I could keep the house, but only for life. After I died, it goes to the kids. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I pushed a manila folder across the table. Inside was a copy of the mortgage, signed the year after we married, transferred solely into my name, with his permission, granted under duress. Richard read the page. He flipped to the next. His lawyer leaned in, whispering something in his ear. No, Richard said quietly. You can't do this. I already did, I replied. Now, are we signing the deed transfer today? Or should we wait until the judge decides I get the whole estate? He looked at me differently then, not with anger, with fear. Because he realized something. He hadn't married me for love anymore. He'd married a partner who kept better records than he did. And in the end, that terrified him more than any scream I could have thrown at him. We settled that day. He got the pension split, he got the cash savings, but I kept the house, and I kept the control. He walked out the door without a hug, without a goodbye. Just the sound of heavy footsteps fading down the hallway. But the story doesn't end there. 6 months later, I saw them. Claire and Richard. They were walking along King Street, looking stressed, looking ordinary. He was carrying a bag of groceries. She was on the phone arguing. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the life he promised her. Just two people trying to navigate rent checks and bills. I drove past slowly. I could have rolled down the window. I could have waved. I could have let them know I saw them. But I didn't. I kept driving. Because I realized then, their life wasn't my burden anymore. If they wanted to argue in public, let them. If they wanted to fight over money, let them fight. My peace was worth more than their chaos. Now I live here alone. But it's not lonely. The garden grows wilder. The books stay open on the table. I sleep late. I wake up early. Sometimes I hear stories about them. People call and tell me. They lost the condo, someone says. Are you upset? I ask. Nope. Good for them. They needed a lesson. My relationship with my children is complicated. David still calls sometimes. Tio check in. Tio hear about the roses. He hasn't mentioned Richard in months. My daughter visits once a month. She helps me trim the hedges. We don't talk about the divorce. We don't talk about the fight. We talk about the weather. We talk about the grandkids. We laugh at old photos. And slowly, very slowly, the bridge is rebuilding. It takes time, but it takes courage to forgive, even when you don't forget. I want to tell you something important. If you're sitting where I was 2 years ago, in a house full of ghosts, hearing names you shouldn't know, watching your future slip away like water through your fingers, don't panic. Don't beg, don't plead, don't throw rocks just to hurt him back. The best thing you can do? Build. Build your safety, build your accounts, build your secrets. Because life changes fast. Sudden illnesses, sudden deaths, sudden divorces. You need a foundation that doesn't shake. And when the storm comes, you'll stand tall, while others fall. I remember the night of that gala clearly. The lights were bright, the music was loud, but all I heard was my own heartbeat. I thought I was going to lose everything. But in reality, I was about to find myself. Sometimes, losing a marriage isn't a failure. It's a liberation. It frees you to breathe again, to speak again, to be Eleanor again, not Mrs. Richard, just Eleanor. And that brings me to the most important lesson. We spend so much time worrying about what others think, what the neighbors say, what the friends whisper. But who knows how you suffer? Only you. Who knows how hard you try? Only you. Who knows the cost of your dignity? Only you. So protect it. Not with anger, not with rage, but with silence. Silence is where the planning happens. Silence is where the healing begins. When I closed the front door that night and locked it, I didn't lock it on him. I locked it on myself. To keep the pain out. To keep the joy in. And tonight, I'm sitting here in this chair, with a cup of tea, with a heart that is finally light. If you made it this far, you've probably faced something similar. Maybe not a husband, maybe not a gala, maybe it was a friend who stole, maybe it was a boss who lied. Whatever it is, don't break. Hold the line. Keep your eyes open, keep your pen ready, keep your soul intact. Because eventually the sun will rise, and you'll be standing there, still standing, while the clouds pass overhead. That's the victory. That's the quiet justice. And it's yours to claim.